Leonardo DiCaprio, who is now 48 years old. He looks almost as bad as Madonna. He is bloated. I mean, you could tell this guy's like partied a little bit too much. He's got like a big bloated look, like, ugh, step away from the booze. And he is now dating a teenager, literally a teenager. She's 19. He's in the news every week for how he won't date anybody past age 25. If he does, it makes news. And now he's actually gone down to a teenager. She could literally be his daughter.
In today's digital world, the internet no longer waits for facts. It reacts instantly and asks questions later, if it asks them at all. In just moments, everything can shift from silence to chaos as a name suddenly takes over timelines, trends worldwide, sparks debates, and gets analyzed from every possible angle. This time, that name is Leonardo DiCaprio.
Here's Bill Clinton, who just offered an opening statement before his testimony. Would you listen to this? As someone who grew up in a home with domestic abuse. Okay. Not only would I not have flown on his plane if I had any inkling of what he was doing, I would have turned him in myself and led the call for justice for his crimes, not sweetheart deals. Sure, Jan. The reason I'm here is that the girls and women whose lives Jeffrey Epstein destroyed deserve not only justice, but healing. Okay. You and your crazy-ass wife used George Stephanopoulos and James Carville to create whole war rooms to destroy the young women who are accusing you of far less than Jeffrey Epstein was ever accused of. You destroyed them. You organized massive PR campaigns to undermine their credibility, woman after woman after woman, who we now know were telling the truth, and who I certainly believe were telling the truth about you. Kathleen Willey is one. Juanita Broderick is another. Paula Jones is another. Jennifer Flowers is another. So just fucking spare me that you now really have a lot of concern about the women and girls allegedly caught up in the Epstein web. The reason I'm here is the girls and women whose lives Epstein destroyed deserve justice and healing. Oh my God, you're such a fucking liar. This guy just wrote in his stupid letter trying to get out of this deposition, along with his wife, co-signed literally by his wife, there comes a time in every person's life where they have to decide if they're going to roll over for this fascistic government or whether they're prepared to fight. That time for us is now. They were ready. They wanted to be martyred. We are going to fight this administration. We have no information on Epstein. This is just a complete bully job. And
when Megyn Kelly saw how quickly the narrative was spreading, she didn't stay quiet. She spoke out strongly, but not in the way people expected. Because this wasn't just about one actor being dragged into a trending headline. It was about something bigger. How fast the internet turns speculation into certainty, and how quickly a question becomes a verdict. It began like so many viral stories do. Documents linked to Jeffrey Epstein started resurfacing and circulating again. People began digging through them, scrolling, searching, and scanning for familiar names. And the moment a recognizable name appeared, especially one as globally known as Leonardo DiCaprio, it spread instantly. Screenshots started flooding social media. Clips were reposted everywhere. Commentary videos erupted across platforms. And within just a few hours, a full narrative had already started to take shape.
Speaking of infections, I mean, that's one of the big takeaways or pieces of evidence, again, from this library that we now have access to, which is Epstein drafted an email to himself where this brings blackmail into it potentially too. He seems to be threatening to blow the whistle on Bill Gates and is saying he helped Bill Gates procure antibiotics because he slept with a prostitute, a Russian prostitute, and needed to slip something to his then wife, Melinda, in order to be surreptitious about it. And so that looks like Epstein was planning potentially, again, this was in his drafts, but he was planning potentially to blow the whistle for leverage over Bill Gates.
well, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you've written on this too, the Bill Gates potential blackmail thing. So this email that Jeffrey Epstein sent to himself, or was in his drafts, I don't know which, must have been sent to himself. And it's in like the voice of a Bill Gates worker, employee, who seems to be saying, it would be terrible if this stuff I did for you got revealed, sir. It's going to be really bad if the world finds out I got you STD antibiotics to slip into Melinda's food because you cheated on her with a hooker or with a sex trafficking person who had diseases in the hoochie. And your point, I think, has been like that's potential blackmail. And didn't then Epstein and Gates invest in that guy's company? The employee in whose voice Epstein was allegedly writing this email?
Yeah, I mean, look, I will stress it's another case. Gates has denied all of this. And so I think it's just important to say we don't have evidence that anything in that email is true. It does appear that Epstein wrote that to be in the voice of one of Gates's main advisors, somebody named Boris. Boris and Epstein had been exchanging emails because Boris was mad that Gates wasn't going to spring for this really expensive apartment penthouse for him in New York. And he was getting Epstein's advice on how to basically get what he wanted at just a purely materialistic level from Gates. So pretty tawdry stuff. But I think it was the first clearest piece of evidence that, blackmail was, that there was some, there's some evidence that there was some thinking around blackmail. We also know now that there were hidden cameras. He talked, and there's discussion in the email about him implanting hidden cameras. I was impressed by how aggressive Epstein was in trying to get with Gates. He also was advising Gates on how to, raise money and have a donor advised fund.
Her name is Lisa Phillips again, and it's SOT 50.
Several of us Epstein survivors have been discussing creating our own list of names. We know the names. Many of us were abused by them. Now, together as survivors, we will confidentially compile the names we all know were regularly in the Epstein world. And it will be done by survivors and for survivors. No one else is involved. Stay tuned for more details on that. Because history is watching, and so are the women who will come after us. Thank you.
Okay, so I say good for them. This is like the actual men who are in Epstein's circle. This is their worst nightmare because not all of them are pedophiles. Some of them just knew Epstein. I mean, I think Trump is in that category. I think Alan Dershowitz is in that category. Eventually, Steve Bannon was kind of in that category because he was advising Epstein to some extent after he, got in trouble. I don't think these people did anything wrong morally, in terms of the girls. But, if the list is now up to the survivors of like who was in his orbit a lot, because the real officials won't tell us the names of those who have been actually accused of bad actions, I'm not surprised the women are taking control of the situation. And I think this is going to be an even worse outcome for men who are potentially innocent of wrongdoing.
But here's the part that gets lost almost immediately in the noise. Being mentioned in documents tied to a case is not the same as being charged. It's not the same as being accused, and it is definitely not the same as being proven guilty. That distinction matters more than anything. But in the world of viral content, it disappears in seconds. Megyn Kelly's reaction cut straight into that issue. She didn't just react to the fact that a name was trending. She questioned how it was being framed in the first place. From her point of view, this wasn't simply about information being shared. It was about how that information was being shaped, edited, and interpreted in real time. Because the internet no longer just spreads stories, it constructs them. It amplifies them, reshapes them, and often decides how people should feel about them long before the facts are fully clear. And that's exactly what happened here. When Leonardo DiCaprio's name started circulating, it didn't stay in the space of open discussion for long. It quickly crossed into assumption, where perception often moves faster than truth.
There's a clip of Alan Dershowitz that's gone totally viral. It was from an interview he gave Sean Spicer. I'm going to play it for you. I'm going to update it for you. And then we're going to talk about what, if anything, it all means for what we're supposed to believe about the FBI's files.
Let me tell you, I know for a fact documents are being suppressed. and they're being suppressed to protect individuals. I know the names of the individuals. I know why they're being suppressed. I know who's suppressing them, but I'm bound by confidentiality from a judge and cases, and I can't disclose what I know. But I hand to God, I know the names of people whose files are being suppressed in order to protect them, and that's wrong.
Just out of curiosity, without names, are these politicians, business leaders, both?
They're everything. And let me tell you, a lot of them are, at least one of them is somebody who was accused. Others are accusers. And the judges have said, if somebody calls themselves a victim, we're not going to give any information about them. But they may not be victims. They may be perpetrators. So we don't have information about false accusers. And we know there have been many false accusers who have accused innocent people for money. And those records are being deliberately, willfully.
And that's where things start to spiral. Because once people feel something has been confirmed, they stop questioning it. They stop looking for context. They stop asking where the information actually came from. Instead, they begin reinforcing the narrative. Old interviews are revisited, old photos resurface, past appearances are re-examined, anything that seems to fit the story already being accepted. But that's not investigation. That's confirmation bias. Megyn Kelly didn't hesitate to point that out. She highlighted how easily people can be pulled into believing something simply because it is repeated enough times. Because that's how the system works now. A claim appears, it spreads rapidly, and then it starts to feel like reality. Not because it's verified, but because it's everywhere. And once it's everywhere, it feels undeniable. That's what makes situations like this so intense. The Epstein case is not just another trending topic. It involves real crimes, real victims, and serious allegations that demand accuracy. But when names start getting pulled into that conversation without proper context, the focus slowly shifts away from what is proven and toward what is most viral. At the same time, Megyn Kelly didn't ignore the bigger picture. The fact that Jeffrey Epstein had access to powerful circles is real and well documented. It raises serious questions about influence, access, and how someone like him was able to operate in those environments for so long. Those are valid questions, but asking questions is not the same as assigning guilt, and that distinction is where things begin to break down online. Because once the line between questioning and accusing disappears, everything turns into noise. In that environment, perception moves faster than reality, speculation spreads faster than evidence, and a single trending name can reshape public opinion overnight. Megyn Kelly understands how powerful that shift is, and how dangerous it can become. Because once a narrative takes hold, it rarely disappears completely. Even if nothing is proven, even if the claims are later questioned or disproven, the association often remains. It sticks, it lingers, and it quietly influences how people are perceived long after the story moves on. That's the reality of modern media. The internet moves on quickly,